Let me say great evening to all our listeners and viewers in tune right at this time. Coming up next, we'll be having a very special interview. Don't miss it. Well, great to have you connected with us once again. It's a beautiful, wonderful Thursday evening here in Barbuda, and we are truly thankful that as you look at this date, 8 years ago, 8 years ago here in Barbuda, it wasn't all like this. We were not maybe so relaxed and have a smile on our face as this. We were just in anticipation. And we are also, let me take this time to apologize for not able to have to you our last two previous update from the Barbuda Council with the chairman. And he's here with me today, and he's going to give us some update what is taking place in the Barbuda Council, and also given a chance to share with you. He's going to give a brief remarks. And 8 years, now he's in that seat as the chairman. The council, what is they doing, what will be happening, and also giving us some update from some previous questions that were asked. If we have to be back here very soon, we'll have to do that. He's no stranger, always a privilege to have him in studio with me. I thought he was maybe running, but he wasn't. I was the one who was a little bit busy. But we have to start it off. Mr. Mussington, great to have you again.
Good evening, Evangelist Francois. And let me first of all thank you for always having an open door and giving the opportunity to the Barbuda Council generally, and to all councillors to have a voice in terms of speaking to our people out there. And I have to say special good evening to all viewers and listeners to the Barbuda channel. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. Let me first of all at this point offer my condolences to the family of our recently deceased worker of the Barbuda Council. I know it is very hard to have to deal with situations like this where you have sudden deaths and so on, and I can only imagine the stress and pain the family members would be going through, and friends at this time. So my deepest condolences on behalf of the Barbuda Council. To all of you, be strong, and anything that we can do to ease the stress that you're going through now, we'll definitely will do so. I also want to take this opportunity. Today is the 4th of September, and I will just be brief. We are approaching 8 years since we had that traumatic experience in terms of the Irma disaster. It is now the 4th of September, and one of the things about September that I like, it's always a month of hope, because things begin to get green, things begin to flourish, and I'm sure when you look around you can see that right now. I will most likely have an opportunity to speak in more detail with regards to where we are on our 8th anniversary of that catastrophic event, but for today, it is an update, and I'm very happy that Pastor Evangelist Francois, he took the bow in terms of it's not me this time. Okay, we were actually planning to have the chair of lands with us in terms of the follow-up program. That will still happen, but for today, just to keep the ball rolling, at your disposal in terms of providing updates as to where we are as Barbuda Council, the plans and progress that we have set down, and how we are getting along in terms of the people's business. So there you go.
Okay, well, great. Great to have you in tune, Mr. Mussington, and great to have you connected with us. And what we will be asking in a bit is for you just to give us an update. Give us an update as to, 8 years ago, maybe you can, we're not going to just focus on that. Just change that mic and use that. In the meantime, having a beep sound that I don't need to have. Right. So if you have just joined us, we have none other than Mr. John Mussington, the chairman of Barbuda Council. He's here with us, and it's all about council update. And also 8 years ago, we have an event planned. If you're watching this, listening to us live on all our media platforms. So we're on our Facebook page, and we're on. So I think I have you. The mic check?
Yes.
Right.
Am I coming loud and clear?
Loud and clear. Right. Good. Okay. So, Mr. Mussington, I don't know if you want to say anything in regards to 8 years ago, Hurricane Irma. As the chairman of council, I never think I have a chance to talk to you, even as an individual. Briefly, because you're not here to talk about that. Yes. What was the experience like for you?
For me personally, it was a catastrophic event. Having to prepare in the first instance for the arrival of that storm. One of the good things about the situation is that Barbuda and Barbudans in general, we are pretty much on the ball in terms of preparing for storms, because since 1989, somewhere around there, we had a storm that was the first for me, and since 1995 with Hurricane Lewis, which was a Category 5 that passed over Barbuda, direct hit. The eye passed, you came out, bright blue skies, and then the second half came, and that was the most awful. So because of those experiences, many persons were prepared in terms of as much as they could have done. And so Irma now was a far stronger storm. At that time, it was the strongest storm the Atlantic had seen in recorded history. And for something like that to be barreling down and hitting Barbuda directly, there's some differences between Irma and Lewis. Lewis was one of those storms that came and it sat for about a day. Okay, so you were locked down. Wow. All right. Irma, on the other hand, it came, it was sharp, it was vicious, and it went. But then when you looked at the devastation, I can tell you the experience in my home in terms of that, to see the water rise in terms of the surge, to see when you look out the window, all you could see oceans around you, to be feeling the battering of those winds that actually shaking the building like an earthquake, the sounds, all that. When you came out, when the eye passed, you basically experienced as though you were in a strange landscape. You didn't recognize where you were, where lampposts were supposed to be. There's nothing. Lampposts all about like matchsticks broken. Buildings that you would have used as landmark in terms of that, they're just gone. And so that experience in terms of coming out of the eye, and then persons having to move from the community center because the doors had blasted open, they weren't secured properly. So there was panic, they relocated to the hospital, and so people came out and then they battened down for the second half. And the second half is always the rough side, okay? But Irma, by the morning it had passed, and then having to come out now and to see firsthand, you realize that this thing is powerful. Puny man, who are we to question the force of nature and the Almighty, as you pastor would say, in terms of having, it was totally out of our hands. But the beauty about it is that as a community, we gelled and we supported each other, and that is what has to happen in times like that. And so 8 years hence, 5th and 6th of September, tomorrow and the day after, because Irma came the night and stretched over to the following day, we will remember and we will assess where we are. We'll look back and look forward. And one of the things that I can say, and I keep saying it each opportunity that I have, we have not recovered fully since Irma. When you look at our situation before Irma in terms of our vulnerability and where we are now, 8 years hence, I can say in my considered opinion, we are not as resilient as we were before Irma. And I give you one example. Before Irma, we had the lagoon, and the sandbar intact. We had much of our wetlands in place in terms of Cedar Tree Point and Palmetto Point. And we had those wetlands as protection. That is what saved us in many instances from consequences with regards to serious storms like Irma. Today, when you take a look, Barbudans, you look on the west shore, the sandbar, you will notice that it is not there. That is my biggest concern, I can tell you, because should another storm like Irma come, we do not have that protective mechanism in place. And because of that, I can say we had a disaster with the hurricane passing, but the greater disaster was the management and what happens subsequent to that disaster. What should have happened is that we should have built back, we should have put things in place to make ourselves more resilient. Unfortunately, we are not that so. But more on that, we will have more opportunities to speak in detail as to that. We can only hope at this time. September is the height of the season. We know this season extends up to November. We have had hurricanes in January. And the way the climate is going now, we cannot let our guards down, and we can only hope that so far we have not seen any major events. The shake-up we had just couple weeks ago, that brought some good rains. We are very grateful for that. But just hope we continue like that in terms of getting rain and water, but not vicious storms like we did. So that's my take in terms of remembering, and there are lots more to say, but there are other opportunities I will do that.
Okay, great, very good. Okay, what I want you to do at this time, Mr. Mussington, it's your program to giving us an update. We have not been here maybe for a month or so. Tell us what has been happening in the Barbuda Council, some of the things that have been happening that we need to know.
Okay. One of the things that you can visibly see, and it's something that we had issued a press release just a short while ago, and that's the roadworks. We would have met with principals of the Caribbean Development Bank and the UK representative and so on. In fact, today, yesterday actually, we had a meeting with the British High Commissioner, who is also involved in terms of certain funding that we have had over the years. So with regards to what you would have seen, the roadworks in terms of Barbuda Council, you would notice that today the work resumed in terms of completing that last stretch between Hospital Corner and the gas station. Now that is a very significant milestone, because the council's official effort with regards to roadwork will end at the gas station. We had issued a press release earlier where the Caribbean Development Bank through certain loan funds, as well as the Canadian government, we had a grant after Hurricane Irma, and those monies were geared towards certain projects going on. And one of those projects is roadwork, and we have been pledged an additional 9 kilometers of roadworks. So we are expecting that the road from where the concrete leaves off at Sangong Plantation, coming to meet up at the gas station where the council efforts will end, that will be completed. There's also roadworks to be done from the corner by Madison going all the way down to the lagoon, the fisheries complex, and then to continue from where the council roadwork started, going all the way up to the solar power plant. Now, that is what we expect to happen with regards to that. Oh. And we will hope, and there's another leg coming from Sir McChesney George Secondary School where the asphalt road ends, to come and join up with the corner by the baker shop for Sandari here. Okay, so that's what the expectation is. We have also had progress with regard, because there was grant funding in terms of running the transmission lines on the ground from the power plant into the village. That is something that was funded by the CDB and the British UK CIF fund in terms of getting that done. The solar plants, we are having some issues because we should have had a handing over to end that project and to finally commission those solar plants, because there's solar installation at the hospital, the community center, and the council's admin building. In the last assessment visit that we had a couple weeks ago, it was found that there's some certain technical issues with regards to the automatic switch over, because you would have noticed apparently APUA is having some difficulties and there are frequent power cuts, and that really should not have been happening with the installation of these solar systems in place. But there are difficulties we're experiencing in terms of the switch over, and there's going to be a visit shortly by technicians to see how well they can sort that out, because that's very important. We should not be suffering that sort of power outage and so on at this stage. Okay, so that is an update with regards to road works which you would have seen. We would expect as well, because as all of us who use the roads, you would know the condition of the side roads, the secondary roads, the potholes. It is awful, I have to say. And so the Barbuda Council and those responsible, we are hoping that with the major roads out of the way, then we can start addressing those secondary roads in terms of giving some relief, because the rainy season is coming on, and as bad as it is now, it's going to be worse once the rains come and that sort of thing. And we're mindful of that, and efforts will be made in terms of addressing that. On the front, what I can also report as well, the Agriculture Department and the session we should have had should have been with the Chair of Agriculture and Lands. Persons would have noticed that there's work being done on the sandground plantation in terms of getting things back up to scratch. And let me briefly tell you what is the expectation. The overall goal is to get the sandground plantation back into production as a coconut plantation. The entire 500 and something acres, to get that back in place. And that is potentially an excellent source of revenue, because coconut products, byproducts, are very lucrative in terms of having an industry like that. So the aim is long term to get that back up and running. We have acquired certain coconut seedlings. They're presently being started off at the Lands Office. You'll notice that a certain section of the sandground plantation is being fenced. That is a small section. The intention is that the entire plantation would be fenced up, and to get that back up and running. The Highland plantation, the same is being done in that a section has been fenced off, and that is to serve as a nursery and production center in terms of starting off up there. Those of you who know the Highland plantation, you will see what is fenced presently is just a fraction of the entire thing. The intention is to get the whole area back into production. Now, water is very critical in terms of agricultural production. We have had visits from technicians from the Ministry of Agriculture. Just yesterday, we were hosting one of the extension officers, Brent Georges, and he was accompanied by an FAO consultant. This is the second or third visit by such a consultant, because there's a water catchment system at the Highland, and we are working to get that back into commission, to get it completed so that we can have a store of water that will serve not only the Highland plantation, but also anyone who has provision grounds in that area that will require water in order for them to produce. So those are the long-term plans with regards to the agricultural part of it. When it comes to the fisheries and the lagoon and so on, I can report at this point, and this is coming out of the funding given by the Canadian government as well as the CDB, RRL loan, Restoration and Recovery Loan. And we would have experienced in the past situations where our fishers go off, they are lost, and that is a heart-rending situation in terms of having to mount searches and so on. It was recommended that systems be put in place to try to avoid that. Well, just last week I was in Antigua and I collected 22 EPIRB devices. These are personal locator devices which fishermen and anyone who use the sea, once you walk with one of these, they are automatic. In the event of any disaster, they fall into water and so on, they will start transmitting a locator signal that can be picked up internationally and locally, so that searches will be more efficient in terms of finding persons who have encountered difficulties. So we have just received, as part of the funding that I mentioned, 22 of these devices, and we are going to be putting things in place to make sure that our fishermen are equipped with them. We have to provide some amount of training in terms of their use, but they're going to be required pieces of equipment, and those will go a long way in terms of assisting us in the event of any accidents to locate persons who are in difficulties. We have also received 2 satellite radios as part of the funding initiative. Now, these satellite radios are very important in disaster situations, because if you can remember from Irma will wipe out all telecommunications. And it is these satellite phones that you will need to communicate to the outside world. So we have received 2 of those. We will shortly be commissioning them. They work on subscription type of thing. So we definitely would want to have them in place for the remainder of the hurricane season at least. So those are 2 very progressive moves in terms of Barbuda Council, in terms of addressing our vulnerability with regards to disaster situations like we have faced in the past. So that's an update in terms of where we are with that. Okay, so you will be hearing more about that in terms of once we put our systems in place to getting those things up and running. There's also another community center and storage area to be built from the funding which I mentioned, and we'll be having a meeting on Monday with the engineers who will be leading the construction. That particular building is expected to be located on Twofoot Bay Road, next to Burton's right there, Burton's residence. That plot of land was chosen. The previous owner of it, we relocated the person because that center is to be placed there to serve that section of the island in terms of disaster situations. So it's a community center, it's a storage area, it's a hub in terms of having us be prepared and resilient in terms of disaster situations. So construction on that is slated to start shortly. So that will be well needed in terms of where we go forward as a community. So those are the things that are happening. So look out when you see things being constructed and so on. And that's one of the reasons why we selected to get that road fixed all the way up to the power station, because these are roads that are going to be very critical in terms of us being able to handle disaster situations. You will also be aware that the transmission lines from the power station into the village runs on the ground in that area as well. And that effort is to make sure that recovery after a catastrophic event like a storm is more efficient in terms of getting back up to speed. So those are some highlights in terms of things that we're working on as Barbuda Council, and slowly but surely we will work to deliver things so that we are in a better place when it comes to managing our situations going forward. So I think that's an update that I can give off the top of my head. So remember, this is an interactive program, and I'm open to questions from you, Mr. Francois, and audience out there as well.
Okay, that's right. And just also to, I just wanted to touch on, the council of an educational department, school reopened, but the council is responsible for, do you have any update? Are they cleaning the yards, and also the Holy Trinity, that they start cleaning the yard and this kind of stuff?
Okay, thanks for that reminder, even though I retired in 2022. Well, you are perfectly right. When it comes to September, at this time, schools would have started their cleanups and so on. Barbuda Council is responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of buildings. Education falls under the central government administration. But in terms of Barbuda Council, we are responsible for the physical infrastructure So schools would have been cleaned around this time. I know when I was up at Sir McChesson George Secondary, the week prior to, cleaners came in. They did a general wash down, scrub down preparation and so on. And I know definitely that has been going on. When you look, you can see the yard for Holy Trinity has been cleaned up and so on. So preparation for next week, Monday, for school opening, I think we're on the ball in terms of that, in terms of getting the plants ready for the new academic year. That is a stressful time for teachers. I know, having to come off of the long vacation and having to face the excitement of sitting down in the classroom again. I am out of that.
Okay. Just before
I think we'll be ready in terms of the next academic.
Just before we start asking or just looking, I as part of a media here, we receive a notice. I don't know if you can touch on it a little also in giving us an update. And I don't even want me to read it, based for those who have not maybe seen it. I know it's around the place. So I'm going to read it, then I expect you to give an update. It has come to the attention of the Barbuda Council that persons have been engaging in certain transactions involving land and property. The general public is therefore asked to take note of the following. 1. Land in Barbuda is not sold. Barbuda lands are not for sale. Only the Barbuda Council is authorized to transfer land from one Barbudan to another. All such transfers must be handled by the land office. Persons who are occupying land without the authorization of the Barbuda Council are asked to come in and have their situation regularized or face eviction. And Barbudans who have continued to engage in this practice will face action by the Barbuda Council, which can include revocation of the allotment issued by the council. This is a notice from the Barbuda Council. Can you update us on why and what this is all about?
Yes, that's a very important notice that we have issued to the general public, and we will also be going on a campaign in terms of writing directly to individuals who we know have engaged in certain practices which are not legitimate. Now, it's very important because things appear to be getting out of hand, and there's a lot of misconception out there with regards to lands in Barbuda. We even have, coming from the central government administration, the whole notion that unfortunately paints a picture that persons seem that they can come to Barbuda and involve themselves in all sorts of situations and issues. Now, we are going to clamp down on that because the land system that we have presently serves us as Barbudans. It is one which ensures equal access to the resources of Barbuda to all, and it is one that sets in place situations where even non-Barbudans, persons who come in, can do business and operate under the circumstances that we have with regards to leases. We have found that persons seem to have the notion that they can come and buy from individual Barbuda plots of land that they can then build on. And that notice will serve to let people become aware that they are engaging in a very, it's an illegal practice, and it's something that can leave you in a situation where you end up with nothing. And that is why we point out that it is the Barbuda Council alone which has the authority to deal with lands. The Barbuda Council was brought into being by the Barbuda Local Government Act of 1976, which is entrenched in the Constitution of Antigua and Barbuda. And generally, the responsibility of the Barbuda Council is to administer the island of Barbuda. There are 6 specific areas of responsibilities which it has, which includes lands, agriculture, forestry, and also the marine resources that we have around. Now, in terms of allocating lands, only the council legally can make such transactions. So we have had situations where Barbudans some persons seem to think that they have a friend and they can give them a cut somewhere and give them authorization to start building. No. When you find yourself in that situation, you do not have anything legitimate to rest on. Because if you're passing money to someone who claims to be giving you a spot of land to build and so on, what really do you have in your hand? Because that person does not have the authority to do so. And we're making sure that we let the public understand that if you find yourself in that situation, you really don't have a leg to stand on. And that has to stop in terms of how you go forward. Under the Land Act that was in place before it was repealed by the central government administration, there was provision for the lease of land to persons in those situations in 5-year and 10-year tranche and so on in terms of rents being paid. Even with the repeal of the Barbuda Land Act, the Barbuda Local Government Act remains in place, and the Barbuda Council under the Local Government Act has the authority to allocate land for specific purposes, including residential, commercial, and agriculture. And those transactions can only be legitimate when they come through the Barbuda Council. So what you see in terms of that initial notice is to let the public become aware. Do not follow by what you might have heard on the road, and certainly do not enter into those transactions where you think you are purchasing property, because you will end up not having anything because it's not a legal transaction. So we need to regularize the entire situation, and we're starting off by putting that notice out, and we will be contacting specific persons who we know have been engaged in that practice, both Barbudan and non-Barbudan, in an effort to regularize the situation.
Okay, so basically, you mentioned there about revoking of the allotment from the Barbudan or from the person who the Barbudan would have allotted the lands to.
Let me clarify that. The non-Barbudan who would have engaged in a situation like that, they have nothing. So there's nothing for us to revoke from them. What we will be revoking is that the Barbudan, who by right, being a Barbudan, is by right, can be allocated land for those purposes there. The council can take it back because you have abused the privilege that you would have enjoyed. Okay? And so that is where that stipulation comes in. The unfortunate thing is that the person who may have paid money thinking they are purchasing land, they are the ones who will get the short end of the stick in terms of ending up with nothing, because you have not entered into a legitimate transaction. You don't have land. Okay?
Let us go back to the devices that came in. How would these devices be distributed? Would they be on a rental basis, or as a fisherman, did they have to rent them? How is this? Or they explain that, how you plan to go about giving it to the fishermen?
That is something that has to be worked out at this stage, because if you notice, we have far more than 22 fishermen. Ideally, everyone who ventures out on the ocean should have one of these personal locator devices. This is something that comes with the trade. We have stepped up as Barbuda Council in terms of acquiring this first tranche, and we're going to have to put in place a system where we can distribute them. At this stage, we don't know how yet. We have not worked out yet if it's going to be a case where they are rented for a period of time. The ideal thing is for each fisherman who plies his trade out there, because it's a personal locator device. In other words, it's keyed to an individual, it's keyed to a vessel. Because once these things go off and they automatically start transmitting in the event of certain situations taking place, that is a unique identifier for the person and the vessel. So that's the stipulation there. That's very critical, and we're going to have to work out at this stage how best to distribute this first tranche. Ideally, we would wish that every single fisherman who plies his trade out in the ocean has one of these personal locator devices.
The last time is okay. Let me read the question. Give us an update on the on the collection of garbage the last time, and ask Mr. Mussington when last he take a drive up by the landfill.
Questioner, I know exactly what you're going through. It is not good. It's not good, and we've had discussions in Barbuda Council with regards to how best to deal with that situation. Part of the discussions we had, I think one of the decisions was made is that we divide up the village into two sections, two major sections, and engage two private individuals in terms of the pickup. The fact of the matter is the system has not been working. Persons' garbage have not been taken up regularly. That's the sad reality. And so we have to assess how to move forward under these circumstances. Because if we have the persons contracted not delivering, then we cannot continue down that road. Now, the actual dump site itself, it's out of control. That dump site is actually supposed to be a sanitary landfill. There are disposal cells located, and these are to be managed in a particular way. Now, over the years, and especially after the hurricane and so on, the systems that should have been in place in terms of the management of that sanitary landfill got knocked out. That, in conjunction with the massive quote-unquote developments with all that is happening in terms of construction and so on, and everything is directed to that side. And with the limited resources and capacity of Barbuda Council, things have gone way out of hand. It is an eyesore. It is a problem that we must tackle. All right? So at this stage, that's all I can say in terms of what we are aware of the situation. The chair responsible for that area, we have sat as Barbuda Council and worked out certain issues that have to be put in place, and going forward we just need to deliver. That is not a sustainable situation there. Okay? It's an eyesore and it's a hazard as well.
Okay. Okay. I'm rephrasing, right? So, because I don't want to just ask as people ask. What about ask Mr. Mussington about the roads? Yes, we appreciate what has been done on the main road, but some of us are not living on the main road, not next to the main road. What about some of the by roads, even to grade them, especially when it rains? Folks want to know, is the local workshop here, works department, will be doing any of that?
Okay, thanks for that question, caller. I did mention earlier when we started the program that yes, we are presently working in terms of those major arteries and the assistance we are hoping to get in terms of 9 additional kilometers. But I did mention as well that the secondary roads, the side roads, they are awful. The potholes and the coming rainy season is going to get worse. So the Barbuda Council definitely recognized that there is a problem, and we have met in terms of understanding that something has to be done. And over the next coming weeks, and hopefully for me personally, I would hope that it start to be addressed before the height of the rains, because once those roads get wet, it's going to be much more difficult. All of the secondary roads are awful in terms of the massive potholes. And if it means that we have to start doing things differently, because the root of that problem is the trucks that are indiscriminately running up and down the place in terms of those areas. It's not the ordinary vehicle that has caused the damage in terms of those massive potholes. And if it means that we're going to have to start addressing the movement of these heavy-duty equipment and so on, then we just have to bite the bullet and do it. But yes, we do recognize that those secondary roads are really bad. The mile that has been taken up presently is to try to finish off the verges of the present road, but we do recognize the fact that we need to start applying some of those material into those areas that are really bad. And I can see with the the question in there, yes, I can definitely see what you're saying in terms of that.
Okay. Has the Barbuda Council, this is from Facebook, normalized its office hours of operations? If so, please share what these hours of office operation.
Yes, technically the office operation hours should be 8 to 4:30. Okay. Um, Presently, I have to admit that that is not strictly being followed in terms of what we see, but the working hours with the Barbuda Council is 8 to 4:30. I know presently we have some certain dispute in terms of heads of departments and some things that are happening, unions are involved, and these are issues that we will have to raise and work out because it's a give and take. And when you enter into negotiations with workers and so on, it must be a give and take in terms of the management of workers. There are certain things that we have to deliver as the administration. It is our responsibility. And there's also on the other side, in terms of employees, responsibility to adhere to working hours and that sort of thing. So yes, that is an issue that we need to tackle and sort out.
Okay, back a little to we mentioned about the solar plant. Can you tell us how soon those at the hospital and the at the council hall will be operational? And a question is asked: does the council have council building? You know, this is a white building, but the administrative building, do they have a standby generator? Because folks realize that power off yesterday and not much operation were able to done. Can you address that?
That has exposed the difficulties that we're facing, because the whole idea behind the intervention, the funding round, was to make such eventualities a thing of the past. The main administrative building, we had selected key areas in terms of the operations in Barbuda. You will notice the community center, the hospital, and the main administration building would have been outfitted with these solar systems. The intent was that they all have battery backup storage and they all have the capacity for automatic switchover in the eventuality of the main feed for electricity cut. That is precisely the issue we're facing now. These switchover mechanisms are not in place. They have not worked. The last round of meetings we had with the CDB technicians in terms of updates, we realized that there's something seriously wrong in terms of these systems use SIM cards and so on, and they need connectivity to the internet to have a smooth transition. And we recognize that some of these SIM cards were not in place. So next week, actually, there'll be technicians on the ground in terms of re-looking at the systems because they're still under warranty in terms of the contractors, in terms of what should happen in terms of their operations. So the standby generator that's supposed to be at the admin building, that would not have been necessary had the solar systems been working. So that is the difficulty we face, and hopefully with the upcoming visit of the technicians, we'll be able to get things sorted out because we should not be facing these sorts of issues at this time. For example, the solar plant, that solar plant has the capacity in terms of generation for putting power out to the entire community. It's also equipped with 2 diesel generators which are self-controlled with the capacity for remote control and that sort of thing. Somewhere along the line, things went awry. So even those that are there, something is wrong. And we have to really we have to go ask APO what is going on there. We should not be facing this sort of situation at this stage.
Okay. If you're just joining us, remember you can send us a WhatsApp 775-1031. I do apologize for those on the radio. 775-1031. We're also broadcasting on the Barbuda Channel Facebook page, Barbuda Channel YouTube channel, and we're also on Channel 6 and also on Abundant Life Radio, broadcasting this event at this time. Asking about is there any truth that the plans to move the river, the dock at the river. I don't know if you can address that.
Yes. That is an issue that we face, and it's somewhere along the line, certain, what should I say? I'd have to choose my words carefully. Decisions were taken with respect to relocating the river port. Okay? Now, as to the reasons why, those persons who have made that decision need to come public and say why. Because as far as we're concerned as Barbuda Council, there's no justification in terms of overall benefit to us as Barbudans for that river port to be moved. In actual fact, and we can only suspect, that there are certain developments which persons are pushing which involve the sale of real estate. You would have noticed that persons who have allocations of land in the river area, all of a sudden you notice fences going up and fencing off people's properties that were allocated by Barbuda Council. There has also been a proposal to take up the river road and relocate that road so that you no longer have passage through that concrete road to the present river dock. We are supposed to be relocated somewhere else. Now, where is the benefit to us as Barbudans? Whose purpose will such a move serve? And those are the issues that we're contending with. The position of Barbuda Council is that we will not be entertaining any relocation like that. The present location of the port is not by chance. Those who know Barbuda and how it sits in the ocean will realize that Barbuda is surrounded by reefs. And those reefs can be treacherous. Where that port is located was deliberately selected in colonial times and blasted, the dynamite blasting through that reef system to provide access to land in that area. These are things that were done. Now, if you're going to relocate the port, you have to take into consideration, because there's no approach from the ocean to Barbuda that gives you clear passage with the depth to land. Where the river dock is presently located, that was created through engineering and blasting to get such passage. So, with the proposal that we're hearing about, what are you going to do? Go through all that again, and what's the justification? What's the cost? Who is going to pay for that? What's the benefit for us? So those are questions that has to be made public. But the position of Barbuda Council, no, we do not support what is being proposed.
A follow-up question was coming to ask Mr. Mussington if the move of the river dock happened under BPM Council. And I guess he just answered.
There's no move as far as we're concerned. There are certain persons who wish to sell up to 77 real estate units, each costing at least $3 to $4 million US. So it's a money-making thing for certain persons, and create a marina in the present port area. Who is going to be served by that? Certainly not us. It's the persons who are going to be selling those real estate units. Okay? And you're looking at maybe $300-400 million US in terms of profit from the sale of real estate. That doesn't benefit us as a community.
Okay. What we have to do, we do apologize, Mr. Mussington, because of the rate of the questions, and also I know you want to make your point, and I know we started late. We're going to just try to, I'm not rushing you, but speed it up a little, because so we can.
And certainly I can come back and, we have updates in terms of regular updates.
Right. Okay? And that's the thing. We have to really be doing this, and it's with all these things, because I didn't know you're supposed to be my friend. You didn't tell me you're moving dock, and I have to. People have asked me.
No, it's a difficult situation, because we've had to be battling certain things.
Okay.
But there's
so that's why I need to. Right.
Now,
okay.
Right.
Well, I do know. Well, I'm just asking based on what is coming in. So I'm happy for my.
Yeah, but the listening public, please be aware that the Barbuda Council has no intention of adhering to that.
Okay.
What people are proposing.
I'm just seeing where do I go from here. You updated us the last time that the council, I wouldn't say the council, but there will be some court cases. Can you give us an update of if those court cases had really happened or not?
Okay. Let me, off the top of my head, there are a number of cases that are in the works.
One with
we had a hearing for the Cedar Tree Point issue, and that was a challenge, essentially, the notion of someone building residences for the royal family and in a protected area in the bird sanctuary zone, which is putting us in a critical situation in terms of one of our national attractions. That is a Ramsar site. And we actually had meetings this past week concerning discussions involving that Ramsar site. So there was a case involving George Jeffrey and a challenge. So we're waiting the verdict of the judges on that. There's also a situation in terms of the land clearing that took place in Cately Hill. That matter also is before the court in terms of Barbuda Council challenging the notion of persons coming to create housing scheme that we don't know about and that sort of thing. So that matter also is going to the court. We also have a situation with regards to the adjudication process. You would have heard announcements from the central government administration that all of Barbuda is declared as an adjudication section and land will be adjudicated. That has ended up before the court, and we are waiting dates and so on in terms of hearings for that. There's also another matter in terms of the coastal road up by the Barbuda Cottages area. A hearing is scheduled for the next couple of weeks, sometime in October, in terms of that particular matter there. Down at River, in terms of an individual Barbudan is challenging the PLH and the Murby development. That Murby development is the one that involves the movement of the port and those green fences and so on you have going up there. So there's an individual Barbudan who has a matter in arbitration at the moment, so I can't say too much in terms of that. But essentially, Barbudans, what you should understand is that we are faced with a situation since Hurricane Irma in 2017 where central government administration embarked on a policy of real estate sales and totally ignoring the policy visions of the Barbuda Council and Barbudans in terms of where we intend to go in terms of our economy. And that has created a lot of conflict, and we're not going to sit and allow ourselves to be deracinated and to be shunted aside and our land system changed for the benefit of others. And so that is the basis of those court matters that I've outlined there just now.
Are the council fully up to date with all their payments to workers?
Yes, as far as I know. I don't think there are any outstanding issues with regards to payments. We're into a slow period at this stage because, you know, the summer months, the tourism would have slacked off and so on, and so revenue into Barbuda Council, which is why persons who would have received recently notices of trade licenses and vendors licenses and so on, that is how the administration keeps itself going and paying workers and so on. So persons who have businesses and you would have been notified that licenses and so on are due, it is your civic duty to add to the coffers because that is what pays salary and does the road works and does all the other services as Barbuda Council that we offer to you as people.
Okay, give us, you mentioned about this is one just coming, okay, school reopening center. This center at which is I would say a great idea, Tofut Bay Road, let me call it that way. Is there a timeline when that is going to be starting on, and can you give us anything about the size? Do you know anything about that? How big it is going? It's going to be as the other community center here or smaller? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's designed as a community center, so the size is going to be comparable to what we have presently down at the present location there. It's also designed as a shelter and disaster storage area, so it will have offices and stuff like that to facilitate emergency situations. We also insist that water storage and so on be put in place. So actually Monday, the consultant who got the go-ahead in terms of the build-out they'll be meeting with council. We have seen the drawings. We've had opportunities to have input in terms of layout and to make sure that certain things are in place for that center. So Monday's meeting is to confirm all that. I'm not sure whether a contractor has been identified because, with CDB, it's a process of bidding. Contractors will have to bid in order to get the consultancy in terms of the build out. So time-wise, we are hoping that we have only the third and fourth quarter to look for. We're actually behind schedule in terms of that build out. Things should have been in place by now. So we're delayed in terms of the actual execution of that. Okay. So hopefully we can see something starting this quarter upcoming and completion by next year.
I want you to, as I said, we have to speed. I'm tempted to let you come back here Monday because you were late. Are there any plans to revitalize the cemetery and getting caretakers to maintain it? Give me an answer.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
That is a problem as well. And I've had conversations, for example, with the back operator and so on. We do need to do something in terms of tidying up. And bear in mind, that present cemetery is not the only one. There are at least 3 other church cemeteries with, it's basically hollowed ground. You have persons buried there. So it's the entirety in terms of those areas to be cleaned up. That is why persons would have seen an attempt to expand the racetrack, which actually was encroaching on these areas, which, as you know, Pastor, they're hollowed ground. We cannot allow persons to desecrate areas like that. So it's not just the present location for the footnet setting, but there are other subsidiary cemeteries which were owned by some of the churches that we need to clean up. And we do recognize that we have to mount a project specifically to get all those areas sorted out, to regularize the cemetery itself in terms of the location of graves, because it takes a lot in terms of getting through that material to dig those graves and so on, and to upkeep the place in a manner which is befitting of our dear loved ones that has passed on.
Has the Barbuda Council addressed the issue of retirement age for its employees?
We are presently working on that situation. The retirement age for Barbuda Council is still 60. You would have known that Social Security and the central government have increased that age, I think, to 65. So that put persons in a particular situation where you would have retired from Barbuda Council, but your pensions and so on will not kick in because that has been increased. So we have put in place a subcommittee in terms of working on that, and so persons who would have fallen into that particular situation, we have options in terms of bringing them back on under certain conditions so as to address the situation, because it's not good that you're hanging out there without a pension and no means of employment and so on. So yes, we are aware, and we are presently working on persons who are affected in that way.
We know that the Barbuda Council should be helping because we are one family in Barbuda. But at times, and this have to do with helping and working on homes for individuals. And the person is basically saying it seems like only certain persons' homes the Barbuda Council are working on and not some. And is the council benefiting financially when the workers go and do as the Barbuda Council workers and private homes?
There is a system in place where assistance would have been given to persons who are in that particular situation. There's a formula which should be applied in that a certain percentage of the requirement in terms of costs and so on is to be paid by the homeowner, and the council provides the labor with regards to that. I know we have had discussions in terms of the finance committee as to how to proceed with that. And I think the decision coming out there is that we ought to adhere strictly to the system which was put in place in terms of the formula, contributions from the actual homeowner, contributions from Barbuda Council, and the system in terms of who benefits. That has to be objective, and we cannot put ourselves in a situation where it appears that it is selective with regards to who benefits from that. So yes, we are aware of that situation, and there has been discussions in that. We need to work more in terms of sorting that out if we're going to continue, so that it is objective, it is above board, it is fair to all who qualify in terms of benefit from it.
How soon, as you mentioned, can we start seeing and the agriculture become vibrant again here in Barbuda, and the Barbuda Council begin to sell produce like we used to do, as they were saying? Some, I know, it's a question like they used to do some years ago.
Okay, that's a very good question, and what I want the person to be aware is that things are not the same as years ago. If you would have noticed, the time the rains come, the amount of rain, how heavy the rain is, where water gets stored and that sort of thing, everything has changed. And that is a result of climate change. We have the sea is rising, and what that has done, most of the wells that you see located on the lowland, which would have been suitable for agriculture, none of those wells at this time are suitable for putting on plants. The salt level in them is too high. So what that means is that the way of doing agriculture that would have worked in the past, it no longer works today. And the critical thing that people need to understand is that without water, you cannot do agriculture. So for us to survive going forward, we have to start applying technology. And that's why you would have heard about climate smart agriculture and that sort of thing. Number one, water is the issue. And so you're not going to see the type of situation and production in the manner in which you have seen it in the past, because conditions just are not conducive to that. Anyone who has experience in terms of working ground, you know you just can't do it the same way nowadays. Because traditionally, you would have cleared your ground and stuff like that and so on by April, May, with the expectations that you would get rain, and that rain-fed system would have been able to allow you to produce your watermelon and pumpkin and corn and that sort of thing. It doesn't happen today. Realistically, it doesn't. So you're not going to see a return to those days where council pay persons to produce. We are embarking on a situation where council's role will be to support farmers. We will put in place situations, for example, what is slated for the Highland plantation is that we get into the whole process of supplying seedlings and planting material which are suited to be produced by Barbudans. So we are getting out of the phase where you pay and council is producing into a situation where we support farmers. And one of the greatest things that we can do as Barbuda Council is to supply you with water that will allow you to farm. So the other thing in terms of, it's a pity the chair of agriculture is not here, because we do have plans in place. And what we should be looking at is to provide the services. So for example, refrigerated containers, facilities for cutting and storing your meats and packaging, facilities for assisting you in terms of seeds and fertilizer and providing you with market for produce. Okay? That's the direction we're going to head with regards to agriculture. You're not going to see a situation where the Barbuda Council itself employ persons to farm, because things have changed. The water situation is no longer what it was. The rains don't come the way it does, and so we have to shift over to a different type of agriculture.
Wow. Mr. Mussington, I know it has been a lot, and some folks are just few of the questions, some of which you would have answered about the road, and also somebody is saying, even with they need to see proper cones in place, proper
control of
traffic
yes.
During this phase.
Yes.
It is going to critical areas.
Yes.
Somebody was even mentioning things were so that you didn't even know how to get to the hospital. But I'm not going to say all that. But we passed that already.
I'm very much aware,
right.
And I've actually spoken in terms. The police have also offered, because we have difficulty in terms of communication, and we do have to address that with further roadworks. Emergency situations happen, and we can't be caught in a situation where emergency vehicles can't get to hospital and to people who are suffering.
How prepared are us, not that we're looking for one. So I'm saying this, but it's just a question. If a storm should come, the council have things in the control, shelters, team, a plan in place?
Yes, we do have our disaster plan in place, and every year, come June, we mobilize our disaster committee in terms of getting that plan updated and stuff like that. So in terms of being prepared with respect to that plan, we know where the shelters are, we know how to move people, we have had vehicles and equipment in terms of doing exactly that. My fear is, and I said it earlier in the program, is that in terms of our resilience, we are not up to the scratch where we were prior to Irma. And I pointed out the danger that we face in terms of that risk, having the sandbar being exposed. We no longer have that protection in the event of a direct hit. So that is my biggest concern. And also the situation where you still have buildings that have not been repaired since Hurricane Irma, and in the event that we get another Category 5 storm, those damaged buildings will add to the risk and the exposure that we get. So in that regard, we have a lot of things to be careful about.
What is the status of the Barbuda master plan?
The Barbuda master plan, if it was up to Barbuda Council alone, I think that would be implemented immediately. But the realities of the situation is that we have a situation where central government has a role to play, the Barbuda Council has a role to play, and the people of Barbuda has a role to play. Now that plan has been reviewed by Barbudans. The last I heard, it was before Cabinet in terms of getting central government approval. Because there's several things in that plan that would address some of the things that we're facing. And unfortunately, the policy of luxury real estate sales is not meshing with the plan that we know we have. Because the plan calls for certain directions in terms of economic development, which is not hinged solely on subdividing land and selling luxury real estate.
Somebody's just asking, they said they understand that the cemetery is fenced, you just need a gate. Can the council, can you do anything about that? Let's answer.
Yeah, those are things that we have to address, and we are very much aware that these things need to happen. Yes.
Okay. Well, we just want to, as I said, there are a few other things. Some of the questions are just repeating themselves. Persons have asked questions that you would have certainly answered.
And you're going to replay the recording so
of course. No. Well, what I'm saying, we always repeating things. It's on Facebook, it's on YouTube.
So just to assure those persons who might have joined late and asked questions, and in the event that we're not answering them, maybe the question was
is answered already.
So tune in
and we do apologize that we had to go but something else. It's just that. Just want to make sure we cover, because questions coming in on Facebook, on our WhatsApp number here, and we just want to make sure that we cover everyone and give everybody an opportunity. What we can assure you, we will not be staying this long to return to you again. Yes. And somebody's saying, if it's Mr. Mussington alone and the Barbuda Council, where are the other? No. Okay, I'm just asking questions. So you got to answer.
Let the caller know that we had actually planned this thing in terms of having other members, and we actually had lined up the chair of lands to come on, but certain travel issues and so on came up, and Evangelist has owned up to it.
Those last ups, and it was my yes. Own. They had some things I had to take care of. And we want to assure you that before the month is in, we promise you twice a month. And so before this month is in on the 25th, we'll certainly be back by then. And what I want us to do, and I'm saying this because is that I know you're very busy, but like the road, we need to go there. So when you're talking, we can be able to show a little bit about that. We go to the agriculture. It doesn't have to be any long time. But just folks can, so they're not just hearing you talking. I can be rolling this is so exactly. You talk about the agriculture. We can just go there and take a shot. Maybe you can be there and say, "Well, this
Very
one."
good idea, Evangelist. Let us do that as soon as possible.
That's why I'm your unpaid political consultant. But I do apologize, because we have so many things to do. We had a late start.
Okay.
I just want you to look into the camera now and speak to the people of Barbuda. We will be back, as we tell you, and if I did not get around to your question, it's because some of it have been answered before. Just keep watching, and also we have other engagement. So
well, definitely Barbudans here and abroad, friends of Barbudans, Antiguans and Barbudans worldwide and locally. It's a pleasure for me to be here in terms of giving you that update, and we have committed to provide these updates. This is a means by which we keep in contact with our clients. Remember, we are your servants. We sit in this office at your pleasure, and it is part of our responsibility to engage the public with regards to answering those questions and providing you with the knowledge in terms of what is happening with your tax dollars. And we pledge to continue having these programs. Summer is a month where most organizations and governments have a slow period. Children go on vacation, people take their vacation, so we can understand for the summer months. We're now in September, and so for the last 2 quarters of this year, we pledge to provide you with frequent update. I know the Barbuda channel will accommodate, and the idea in terms of going out on the road and providing direct commentary in terms of showing you what is happening. I think that's an excellent idea, and definitely as soon as that can be organized, we will be back with you in terms of running you through the challenges we have and the successes that we have, and how we can go forward together in terms of making Barbuda a place that is conducive to all of us in terms of how we operate from a day-to-day basis. Okay? So, Evangelist, thank you once again for the opportunity, and you have my assurance. Well, as media person, I have no fear in sitting on this side, and I'm also competent in terms of doing some of your reporting and so on, if you so wish.
I know, but you will sit on that side and answer a question. That's what what persons want. But I will snip you in just a bit, Mr. Mussington. Can the council do anything or assist in any way? Because somebody's asking there, and I'm just asking you, as I know it's a question. There are teachers, sometimes persons may want to come because there's a shortage of teachers in Barbuda. But can the council do anything in any way to assist if persons want to come to Barbuda maybe for 2 years, 3 years to assist at the school, but sometimes can the council do anything to help?
Put it this way, the council has been going above and beyond its responsibilities, because remember, education is not one of the responsibilities under the Barbuda Local Government Act. And the council, they have been doing, and they do continue, because council has gone to the extent of actually paying certain teachers to fill in certain gaps, providing certain situation in terms of accommodation assistance and so on. But the bottom line is, Francois, okay? The government needs to step up. Now, coming out of education, I know for a fact that that is something that has been plaguing us. And I make the statement frequently, students in Barbuda are discriminated against with regards to national education policy. Students in Barbuda will never qualify for any of the CXC awards, because the CXC awards, gold, silver, and bronze, are based on a particular mix of subjects which you have to have. Foreign language is one of them. And if we cannot provide the foreign language teacher, there's no way, no matter how many subjects our students get, we can get any of those awards. And I see that as a discrimination against. Now, suggestions have been made in the past in terms of the budgetary allocations. The Ministry of Antigua need to put in place accommodations. I've made numerous suggestions in terms of how that can be done. I even went as far as, say, subsidize the transport system between Antigua and Barbuda so that teachers who are lacking can jump on a ferry or transport, come to Barbuda, teach the lessons, and go back over for the night. These are suggestions and details that I've given over the years while I was employed in terms of the education system. Unfortunately, we still are at the place, and it needs to be sorted. Otherwise, we will continue to be discriminated in the system as Barbudans.
This is a humorous question, and I guess I know I'm just going to ask it. I guess the person ask Mr. Mussington if he used the international airport as yet. 30 seconds to answer. Yes or no?
That's a good one. Okay? The transport between Antigua and Barbuda is a right, and that transport should be subsidized and made affordable so that people should be able to spend that 25. And don't start me with the international airport.
Not me. So that's why I want to end with that.
If you want a program on that, we
yeah,
can go into detail as to the fiasco that's taking place up there. Okay?
Okay. Thank you all very much for taking the time to be with us and join us. And we thank you very much, Mr. Mussington, for taking the time to share with our viewers and our listeners on this program. Join us again the last Thursday of this month. We'll be back with you for another council update. Thank you.
Thank you.